Good morning. It's News from the Roots on Mountain Stream TV. Today is Friday, September 28th, 2018. I'm Avram Friedman. This morning we have a guest with us. Thank you, Carrie McBane, from Down Home, North Carolina, to talk with us about what that great organization is doing. I marvel at the activities of Down Home. You're just doing some good old grassroots organizing, door to door, and tapping into people's lives and explaining to them why it's important to vote. Is that essentially what's going on right now?
That is very true. And growing up, my parents always voted, and they reminded me that it was important to vote. And vote your conscience, but really, my family is registered Democrats. We're
Okay.
quite liberal. And so my father was an attorney, a construction litigator, and my mother was an English teacher. And I was adopted at about 18 months old.
Okay.
And so I've just known my family. But so
And you've
most
been a resident of Silva your whole life?
no, I have lived in Silva since about the end of 2005 is when I moved up here from South Florida.
Okay.
But I did live in South Florida for 30 years. So I was
Oh.
adopted when I was 18 months old from Nicaragua and brought and raised in South Florida. And
Okay.
that's where my family lived up until, most of my family moved out of South Florida before 2005. I was the last one to leave.
Okay.
And so I've always been quite open-minded, liberal, however you want to say that,
Yeah.
and my family has. And, you know, my parents are no longer here, but my sister is still here. Well, she moved to upstate New York. But they did instill in me that it was important to vote, that your vote counted.
Yeah.
And so that's what my background was. And so I didn't necessarily understand that other people didn't like to vote or didn't think it was necessary. And so I have been given several great opportunities since joining Down Home, North Carolina, to help affect some programs that include everyone. And it's, you know, I have a lot of friends and some family that don't vote very much. And so as I'm getting more involved in this process, which is super exciting to me, I'm learning more too. I'm very new to Down Home, North Carolina, and when they knocked on my door, it was very unexpected. And it was really funny because I'd say even the year prior to that, I had noticed that the state of North Carolina, its government was making changes. And I hadn't seen maybe but one elected official, and that was Joe Sam Queen, that had made an appearance. And I had been complaining to myself off and on for at least a year, saying, you know what, no one ever comes here and asks questions. I know no one's ever knocked on my door and asked, how am I doing? You know, do I make a fair wage? Do I have fair housing? Things like that. And especially with where medical concerns, or my medical needs are concerned. And so I had been saying to myself a couple days before they showed up at my door, I had been very sick for a while, and I did not know what was wrong. And so when Down Home, North Carolina showed up at my door, I don't necessarily invite people in that I don't know. When I'm home, I'm kind of a homebody, and I like my privacy. But the women that showed up at my door were Bridget and Lois from Down Home, North Carolina. Okay. And as soon as they started speaking to me, I instantly connected with them. And I think it was they were non-threatening in any way. They weren't pushy. I could tell they were genuine. They were concerned, and they were there for a reason. And so I invited them in. They asked questions, which I was completely shocked. I mean, here I was just complaining to myself days before that no one shows up and no one asks, and they keep, you know, making these rules and passing this legislation that affects me and affects my friends and my family. And So I was amazed when they asked questions. And, do you vote? And, people that vote, and what do you think? And what are your concerns? And I was floored because prior to that, I didn't know why I was sick. And so I had been to specialists. I don't have insurance. I work part-time as a server at Ferrara's Pizza and Pasta. And of course, they don't offer insurance.
Here in Silva?
Here in Silva.
Oh, okay.
Right.
You were just there eating last night.
Right. Yeah, I've also worked at Lou's on Main and Mill and Main where they were here, and Mad Batter. So
Great
thankfully,
restaurants,
right, they've all been exceptional restaurants. So, but they don't offer insurance. And I know a lot of my friends run in the restaurant business, and so we all understand how this works. Our tips are our living, and so I had been very, very sick, and I had to spend money that was essentially for bills to go see specialists. And I think I'd seen maybe 3. And it was, each one was at least $450. And this isn't money that I could just freely spend, but I didn't have insurance. And I have been to the emergency room off and on, either for back issues or stomach issues. And, it's just, it's a minimum of $1,000 by the time you get out of there. And how do you pay it? And so I just was in agony over being ill and seeing the specialist, and nobody, for 5 minutes of my time, and like $450, it was, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Or I can refer you to somebody else. And so I just was, I was, in a depression. I didn't know what to do. And it seemed like they didn't care. It's like, what? And I had questions, but it didn't seem like it was very concerning to them. It just was, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And so then I had looked into the Blue Ridge Health Clinic, and they really helped me. They were very concerned about my welfare. They were concerned that I didn't look okay. They immediately ran blood tests. I mean, it was crazy how much they did for me in 5 hours worth of time. And they charge on a sliding scale rate, what you make. And so, anyways, they helped me. But no one before had asked about my concerns. No one, not no, I haven't. Like I said, Joe Sam Queen, the only person I've ever talked to briefly. And so, and talking to Bridget and Louise, and of course even Chelsea, they really did care, and they've been extremely supportive. And so after I had gone to the Washington, D.C. rally for immigration protests several months ago, they called me and said, hey, would you be interested in being the coordinator for the RVP program?
Right.
And I had no idea what this was.
Which program is this?
The Relational Voter Program.
RVP.
Right, and the initials are RVP. And so I am the Relational Voter Program Coordinator for Jackson and Haywood County. And so the goal, it really isn't very different than having day-to-day conversations with your friends, your family, your coworkers, people from church, your favorite server at Ferrara's Pizza and Pasta. And so what we ask of people that come to the training meetings, and we're actually holding a meeting tomorrow, Saturday the 29th from 12 to 3 at the Silva Library. What we present is what our mission, what our goal is. And that is to branch out and network through ourselves, through people that come to the meetings, through their networks, and to reach out to people that are uninformed over the ballot amendments coming up, for the midterms, that haven't voted recently or in a long time, haven't ever voted, need help voting, things like that. And also to touch on their concerns like Bridget and Louise did when they first approached me. How are you doing? Do you have access to health care? Do you make a fair, sustainable living wage? Do you have access to what do you call it? Access to even like basic necessities, food, water, heat, things like that. And so we just try to get as much information from them. And this is just in passing. I mean, it's not a, let's sit down and have a serious conversation. It's in passing. It's like, say, how are you doing today? I noticed that I didn't make a whole lot in tips today. How did you do? And then somebody might say, yeah, I just needed to make some more money, and, I've got a car payment. I heard that yesterday. I've got a $300 car payment I have to come up with. And so, servers, as of right now, the minimum wage is $2.14 an hour. And my previous job at the Dollar Tree, I had a brief stint there, that was at $7.35 an hour, was minimum wage.
Here in Silva.
Here in Silva. And that's just not enough. It isn't. I mean, this, we can see slight increases from Duke Energy, from Tuckasegee Water and Sewer Authority. This all adds up, and if you're struggling to make your ends meet now, Silva can be really difficult to find a high-paying job in, especially if you don't have a degree.
Or a decent paying
A
job.
decent, absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where I have been through recently, trying to find a place that I'm comfortable with, that I can make a sustainable living wage. And really, the big thing was access to health care. Even for the Obamacare, I couldn't afford the programs. I just didn't make enough money. And, I was for that, but looking more into it, I was like, well, who can afford health care here? And this is why people are in the emergency room all the time. And this is why these bills pile up, and then they come after you for the bills, and, that's stressful enough. So the relational voter program it forces us, it forced me to step out of my comfort zone, to reach out to friends and family I haven't talked to in a while and see, what do you think? I haven't actually talked to you about this. What's going on with you? And that can be, either a 5-minute conversation or an hour-long conversation. And so, I would invite them, say, hey, do you have time to talk to me for a minute? Do you want to have coffee? We have a training session coming up. And so we go more into detail of information on the RVP program.
So, I have always voted. From the first day I could vote, when I was 18 years old, back in 1968, okay, from that day to this, every election, whether it's a presidential, local, or state election, I vote. I strongly believe in our rights as citizens to vote. But I am constantly encountering people that tell me, oh, it doesn't matter whether I vote or not. The decisions are made anyway. This is all a dog and pony show. Democracy doesn't really exist in the United States. The candidates are chosen for us by big corporations. And in a sense, it's difficult for me to argue with that, because there's truth in the fact that our democratic process has really devolved in its democratic aspects, that there are our candidates are largely chosen for us by the people who contribute to huge amounts of money to political campaigns, making all other candidates inconsequential. And and I'm always engaging people on a personal level who make this argument to me, and I always argue, well, if you don't participate in the process, then you're giving up your right as a citizen, and those who do participate will make the decisions.
Correct.
And the ones who do those corporations that are controlling the process right now count on you not participating. Right. If you do participate and you begin speaking up and you're working with other people toward improving the system and improving the democratic aspects of the system, that's how we win. And I think that in the 2016 election, I'm kind of prejudiced toward the Bernie Sanders campaign myself, but he proved that you can win even on a national election you could compete without taking any corporate money, and for standing up for issues that really mean something to people. That's a lot of the candidates, you know, and I'll include Joe Sam Queen, you know, sometimes don't, they're very skilled at speaking and sounding passionate and not really saying anything.
Right.
And not talking about the issues and what their positions are on health care, on universal health care,
Right.
you know, on increasing the minimum wage to a living wage, you know, on criminal justice reform, and
Big one, right.
and the bias against people of color and poor people in general. So how do we? Well, I mean you're answering that, but you change that by talking to people
Absolutely, and I
on a
think
one-on-one basis.
that's right. And, you know, I never looked at it from that point of view before. I just all I know that in my mind was I was just kind of bitching and moaning that no politician, how dare they make decisions for me
Yeah.
and not even come to my little town and have a town hall meeting or anything like that, or
Right.
go door to door. You know, that would be that'd be something. But, you know, and it really is true. The work that we're trying to do is not trying to convince people to either be Democrat or Republican or
Right.
independent. It is really getting to the heart of the matters. Like, I'm suffering this way. Are you experiencing the same thing? And to get what happened when Down Home stopped at my front doors, it gave me the jolt that I was looking for. To realize people actually, you know, what they call grassroots, but just the local community and citizens, there are people that actually care about you, and they don't have to be your best friend. They don't have to be your employer. They don't have to be your neighbor. They just care about you. And that's kind of where I've always been at. It's like I have a soft heart, or if they want to call it a bleeding heart liberal, which I stand by that proudly. That's okay, because I like talking to people, and I like people responding to me. And we forget that in our day-to-day lives that we don't communicate with one another anymore. And so people that are feeling lost, and people that are disenfranchised, minimalized, things like that, people of color, you know what, I think it's about time that we let people know that we do care. Just the average Joe. People in an organization like Down Home, North Carolina, we do care. We want to see how you're doing, because chances are we've experienced this same thing or similar situations, again with health care, being caught up in the justice system. Absolutely. And really, like I said, it gave me that jolt to say, you know what? I can be a part of something greater than myself, no matter how much time and effort I put into it. I'm doing something that I feel is right for me. And I'm trying to reach out to other people that are just like me. You know, I actually have experienced both sides of the spectrum, because my parents, who worked very hard for what they had and didn't have any money when they came to adopt me, had zero money, and borrowed that money from my mom's mom to come to Nicaragua to get me. And you know, left what they could for me. Both my parents are passed. And I grew up, now I would not say in a life of privilege, but I grew up very comfortable, and I did not want for anything as a child, and so did my sister. And I think, you know, my parents made sure we understood that this wasn't just going to be given to you. You know, there were times, you know, we had to understand that they worked for it. And so I think I can fairly say we did not grow up spoiled rotten. I don't ever remember throwing tantrums because I didn't get something. But anyways, my point is, and so now I'm here in Silva, and I'm a part-time server. My tips are my living wage. You know, I have experienced hardship. And so I don't have my parents to rely on. So it's me. You know, I have to grow up. I have to take care of myself. But again, it's very hard when there aren't too many opportunities offered in a little town like Silva.
And, and I think yours is not an untypical example of I mean, the lie that's out there is that people are lazy and don't want to work, and if you're poor, it's almost as if there's a stigma attached to that, like you're dishonest because you're poor.
Right.
You know, that for some, that you, all you want to do is sponge off everybody else and collect food stamps and Medicaid and all these supposed giveaways by the government. But they're not giveaways by the government. You know, people who, in general, there are very few people who are collecting social safety net benefits who aren't deserving of them,
Right.
and who aren't in need of them. Most people want to feel like they're participating, like they're contributing in some way. Very few people aren't like that, I think. And that's the big lie that's out there. We've been made to feel shame, you know, and also we've been made to feel like we're pitted against other groups that are in the same situation we're in. Oh, that person is Hispanic, or that person is black. They're you know, they hate white people, and you know, and we're pitted against each other like that. Somehow, when we all need to be working together because we all have the same needs. You know, it's Dr. Barber came here. I'm the vice president of the local NAACP. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we had a Moral Monday demonstration in Silva a couple of years ago, and Dr. Barber came to speak. And he was talking about how the state is cutting Medicaid. Or, you know, they're not accepting the federal money for our Medicaid program that could insure up to 500,000 more people in North Carolina. You know, and the stigma is that, well, that's mostly black and Hispanic people. But he was talking here in Silva, and the people in Silva, as well as all over North Carolina, the majority of people who are losing those benefits are white people.
Right. Yeah.
It's not black people and Hispanic people. You know, when you're talking about here in Silva in western North Carolina, you know, there's maybe 100 black people in Jackson County, which has a population of 30,000 people.
Right.
You know, so the people who are collecting social benefits here are 90% white people.
Right.
You know.
Right. And it is a stigma. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that I have run across people in town or even elsewhere that, and it's just a feeling, I can't say for certain, but I think sometimes your gut instinct is right. I know I've run across people that have looked at me and made snap judgments.
Right.
Oh, I bet she has, 10 kids and she's on food stamps, she doesn't work and she's lazy. And, politicians, from North Carolina think that's why they don't come here. They think we're lazy and we're stupid and we're dishonest and we don't know what's happening. And this is why the RVP program is why we're pushing this, is so people understand is that average citizens care about you. And so we want to help fight for you, take it to local, state, and federal. We're not going to win all the time, but the point is to keep pushing, to keep fighting, because
Keep that movement
it's hard.
going and building.
And you know what? I have moments that I struggle,
Sure.
and that I might get depressed. And it's like, why? What is the point? But it's like, because you're here for whatever reason. You're here. I'm speaking about me. For whatever reason you're here, and I've been through different traumas in my life that probably, if I didn't have support system, friends, family, coworkers, might have resulted in a very, very different person than what sits here today. But I want to help people, and I want to help them have their voice heard, and to help stop these stigmatisms that people attach and that our government fosters. You know, I don't want someone to look at me and instantly think that, because that's not fair. I mean, I have absolutely made my own judgments. I will cop to that, because that's fair. But, you know, as I've gotten older and experienced so many different things that the world has to offer to me, whether it's been positive or negative, you know, remembering that everyone is human. You know, just because they made a judgment about me, I don't know, maybe they had a bad day, maybe they just had a bad run-in with somebody else that, you know, gave them a ration of crap, you know, for being white, or, you know, there's all different things. And so remembering that everyone is human and everyone is deserving of compassion and support, and you know, people should know that they are valuable, and that means your vote too. It is valuable, and so don't give up. I know it's frustrating, but keep pushing. Yeah. You know, we can get things accomplished, but we have to be united. We have to trust each other and love each other and realize we're in this together. And it doesn't change unless we foster the change that we want to see.
And that's the only way we're going to overcome the disadvantage we have in our political system of all the money in politics.
Correct.
And when we do get together, we win. You know, ultimately, that's been the history of the United States of America. And it's hard sometimes in the moment. It's difficult to understand that. It's easy to feel defeated and powerless, but that's a cop-out. You know, the fact is that we don't have it as bad as some people have in the past.
Right.
You know,
right.
At one time there was slavery in this country, and that was overcome despite the fact that the slaves didn't have any political power. At one time, women didn't have the right to vote in this country, didn't have a right to own property, didn't have a right to have a bank account.
Right.
You know, that was overcome despite the fact that there was not one woman in government. You know, and that women didn't have the right to vote, and yet when they got together and worked together and organized along with men who worked with them, right. Then they gained the right to vote and are gaining economically and in social status in this country. That's what we have to remember. When labor unions were formed, they were met with guns and nightsticks. Labor unions were illegal in this country until the labor movement overcame that. They overcame all the power and influence of the government, of the corporate interests that ran our government.
Right.
When people got together and organized, and that's what we have to do again now. You know, despite the overwhelming power of these enormous multinational corporations that have gained power.
For sure, and we are inundated every day with things like that, and so I think and that's what's leading to the lack of communication between families, friends, neighbors, the average Joe. We're not communicating with each other anymore. You know, things are being made to supposedly.
Everybody's looking at their little screens on their cell phones and laptop computers. You know.
Right. It's we're very disengaged as a society. It seems like, and that's what makes what's happening these days so much more, I think, traumatic for people. We're inundated with all this negativity. You know, with the vote going on this morning. I mean, even for me watching this, and even though I try to disengage and not overwatch things, because I can get stuck on the TV, on the couch doing that too. It's like glued to it. My eyes are all big. It's like, what's going to happen next? Yeah. And it's like, no, because then it just piles on the negativity, because you're getting it all at once from different outlets. And so I think people really are traumatized, and so it makes them withdraw, and it makes them not want to engage with other people. I mean, because we all have our own daily lives going on, our activities we have to take care of, families we have to feed, you know, jobs we have to go to, and a lot of times that's enough for people, and then they don't want to engage because that's too much for them. So being inundated by all of this, by big corporations and by our government's lack of ability or willingness to even get things done, as they've been elected to do, it's too much for people. And so this is why, going back to our roots and remembering that we are all connected. We are absolutely in this together. Just like me, I am not an immigrant. I was adopted and brought here, so I don't think of myself as an immigrant. I don't think that's a fair statement if people were to say that to me. So I just give them the truth of my situation. I don't deal in alternative facts. But anyway, so I think we have to get back to that. And that is communicating with everyone and remembering that we are all human beings and that we all deserve a piece of the pie. It is very possible. And it's going to be long, hard work, but that's okay. We have to dig our heels in, and it can be done. Well, that's our goal.
And so Down Home, North Carolina is a relatively new organization in the last couple of years, right?
Correct.
Started by Bridget Flaherty and I know Chelsea is now
Todd.
a staff member. Yeah.
Right. And Chelsea White.
Chelsea White. And you're a staff member now?
For right now, I am the Relational Voter Program Coordinator through the midterms, and then I am hoping.
Is that a paid position?
It is,
okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, a temporary paid position.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it is great work. But let's talk a little bit about the work of Down Home, North Carolina. I know that it started independently, and then when the Poor People's Campaign came along, it affiliated with the Poor People's Campaign, which is, again, Dr. Barber is now heading that on the national level. That was an organization that Martin Luther King Jr. started back in 1968, shortly before he was assassinated, and it went dormant after the Resurrection City, the Poor People's Campaign began. It went dormant after King was assassinated, basically, and now Dr. Barber has taken that up and re-energized it nationally, which is a fantastic task that he's taken on. I mean, it's just amazing. And Down Home has become the local affiliate of that in Western North Carolina. And now Down Home, is it through the Poor People's Campaign or just an independent program, this voter registration program and going around and talking with different with people at their homes?
In all honesty, I am very new to the organization, so I will only speak to what I know from when I joined.
Okay.
So I think that's fair. I believe it was the People's Action, known before, and then now it's called Down Home, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so the chapters were in Haywood and Alamance, and we just opened up our brand new chapter and had our first community meeting last Saturday.
In Jackson County?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
So now we actually have a Jackson chapter. And so, yes, it's Bridget no longer lives here. I believe she lives in Raleigh.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Because of how the work requires her to be closer to Raleigh. And so, of course, Chelsea lives in Haywood County.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, from what I understand is, this past summer they spent countless hours and, knocking on 1,100 doors and talking to people, just literally walking through. I watched them walk through my neighborhood too, on Allen Street, and it was the same thing. Do you have a moment? Trying to explain what they wanted to speak to my neighbors about, and again, that's why it was really trying to breach the stigma of, oh, you're trying to sell me something.
Right.
It's not. That's not what Down Home is about.
Are you from Jehovah's Witnesses?
Right. Yeah. Well, really. I've had them at my doorstep too. I'm sure everybody's had it, or other people coming wanting to sell things. It's like, nope, thank you. And so I think initially it's people's reactions like that, but because of the way they present themselves and because they're genuine and they're honest, and that's a reflection immediately of them. That's how they got me to open my door. And that was, again, just wanting to connect with the community and as local citizens, and just having a regular conversation like you and I are doing now. And because they made me feel comfortable, open the floodgates and here we go. And this is why I felt comfortable saying that.
Do you confront any hostility at all?
They have not actually said that they have. I have been more entering information in the database and phone calls, the meetings. I have not encountered any hostility myself at the meetings. I can't say for sure whether they haven't, but they have not. It has not been explained to me that they have.
That's a difficult thing to do.
Faced a lot of animosity. It is. I mean,
Yeah.
it surely is, because I think a lot of people immediately say, "Oh, you're trying to get me to be Democrat or Republican," and so the immediate response is, "No, that is not why we're here. We are not here again to sell you on something. We're here to talk about you and how you are doing, and what changes do you want to see? What are you concerned about? What are you lacking in your life?"
And so that's what it is. It's data collection, basically.
Right, and data collection, but the first and most important thing is wanting to physically connect with the people. The data entry comes later, but this is how we get our information. This is how, as coordinator of the RVP program, my job is to, when people come to a training session, and when we have one tomorrow, we go over a little bit what down home is, a little bit what the RVP program is and how it works, and then at the end, we say, if you would like to sign up for specifically the RVP program, or even, of course, down home North Carolina, what your part of this is, you reach out through your network of friends and family and coworkers, and you touch and have conversations with them. Again, this isn't, we don't want for it to feel like work. It's just integrating this particular program into your daily life. And then, I get the feedback. I support them and say, hey, what is it? If no one's picking up the phone, how does this work? I mean, are you feeling intimidated? What can I help you with? Chelsea is my supervisor. She says, are you intimidated? What do you need help with? Because I'm new to this, and I'm fairly good at holding conversations, but this is new to me, and I don't know, and I don't want to feel obtrusive into somebody's life, and this is not how we want the program to work. So again, it's just everyday conversations, and then reporting back to me, and then I put the data in. But yes, it's more of connecting with the people first, and then gathering the data, and then putting it into the database.
And just to describe the process, I mean, so basically, the team will drive to a certain area on a certain day and start knocking on doors?
Well, that was if they are doing the physical canvassing. The RVP program is, so at the end of the training session, if you want to become an RVP leader, and we go through what that entails, they provide their information as a leader, and then a list of people they are considering contacting to reach out to about voting, about the amendment issues, things like that. And then they make notes, either give them to me or put them in the database themselves, that say, tried to contact Dan, didn't answer the phone, or set up to have coffee with Dan.
So it's done by phone rather than by physically knocking on doors?
Well, not how it depends on how the leader wants to broach that.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be phone calls. Again, we're just looking for, you can be talking to your favorite server. Say, hey, are you going to vote in midterms? Do you know what's happening with the amendments? Those conversations, and then recording it in the database. So it can be phone calls, having a cup of coffee, in passing, things like that. Mm-hmm. And this is to make people aware of what's happening with voting and why it's so important to vote. So it's really up to the leaders themselves how they contact them, and then I keep in touch with the leaders. Usually, my part is usually via telephone or email, however is convenient for them in their busy lives. and then I find out how they're doing, if they're running into barriers, if they're not comfortable making phone calls, how can I help you? Okay, and then I'm responsible for keeping track of them and how they're doing, and for putting in data into the RVP program too.
Yeah.
So we try to make this as simple, and it's not supposed to be work. We don't want people to feel like they have to sit down and make calls. No, because then that defeats the purpose of communicating, connecting with your network of people. And so our goal is to branch out from every leader that we get, however many contacts they have, is to keep contacting, kind of like a spider web.
And so how will this, if it will, translate into political power for the people? I mean, so will the next step be to inform this network of people that you're contacting and tell them what the positions of the various candidates are on the issues that are important to them?
Right, and yes, I'm sorry, were you finished? Yes, and so we hold home meetings that people can attend to, and this information is available on our Facebook page of Down Home North Carolina. Chelsea and other people list events that are occurring, so we have home meetings that you can come to that we talk about. Again, one could be just on healthcare. We actually, in the Jackson chapter meeting last Saturday, we're breaking up to little groups of, however many people attended, maybe 20, 25, I don't quite have the number, but who here feels healthcare is a major concern to them? 5 hands might go up. Okay, who wants to hold a meeting about healthcare? Let's start brainstorming ideas that we want to bring up to our local governments, that we want to see fixed, or we feel needs to be fixed.
So that might be followed up with a letter writing campaign to who, Republican or Democrat, it happens to be in power.
Right, correct, right. Yeah. And so, so again, we're starting from the bottom, and like these little, it could be a town hall meeting, home meetings, phone calls, whatever way possible that we can get our ideas generated and up and running is how we're going to do it. Again, this is new to people here in Jackson County too, and we want people to be to feel welcome, that they can express their ideas, and we're not Down Home North Carolina meetings are a safe space for you to absolutely vent, be emotional, be vulnerable, which is what I've done several times, and usually end up crying over my healthcare issues. And I can see people maybe crying, and members crying, or in the audience too, because they relate.
It's kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous, except for people who are
right. This is right. Correct.
Are suffering from economic.
Absolutely, and it is. And so, and one of our goals is, this is supposed to be a fair, safe space for you to communicate and be vulnerable and to brainstorm ideas. And if you're not, if you didn't quite get what you needed out of the first meeting, let's try something else. So, and actually coming up this week, besides this meeting on Saturday, Chelsea and I came up with an idea to have a ballot amendment meeting. So coming up next week on Wednesday, we are at Mad Batter Food and Film at 6:30. The presentation starts. We are going over the amendments being presented. We're discussing what they mean and what they could mean for the voters.
What day is this again?
So this is Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, October the 3rd, at Mad Batter at 6:30 is when it starts. And then the following evening, we have a 6 o'clock presentation of the same thing at Soul Infusion. So we are hoping to get people out there who, again, have not voted in a while, or are confused about what the amendments are, or don't know, and might go vote anyways and vote yes. Well, hold on, let's go through so you understand what's being presented, because I'm pretty sure it's not being presented fairly. And so, and in a way that people are just assuming, oh, well, this sounds like it's in our best interest, let's vote this way. Let's hold on a second and let's go through this so you guys understand.
It's highly misrepresented.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And so then you vote your conscience. That's all we want you to do. Be informed. Get informed, be informed, stay informed, and let's do this. And so we have these 2 meetings or presentations next week as well, and they will also be on our Facebook page if they aren't already. Chelsea's very good about doing that, and I also, through my own Facebook page, will put out a little nugget of information here and there. But yeah, absolutely, it's all available on the Facebook page, or they're welcome to call with questions or concerns. That's, we're not about trying to hide anything. We're trying to be open and genuine, and we want people to know that their ideas and their concerns are valid, and they're just like ours.
So, if people want to become involved in Down Home NC, how can they do it? You mentioned the Facebook page.
Correct.
Is there a web page, a home page that they can visit?
They do. I think it's downhomenc.org.
Okay.
I believe, and I hope Chelsea, I hope I'm saying that correctly, but for certain, I believe that's correct. The Facebook, we encourage people to come to the meetings. So tomorrow's meeting, even though it's more specifically geared toward what the relational voter program is, we encourage people to come in because we do go through a little segment of what Down Home North Carolina is. And then, if you hear what you want to hear and leave, that's absolutely fine.
And where and when?
That again will be tomorrow, so it's the 29th from 12 to 3 at the Silva Library.
At the Silva Library.
Right, and we're going to try to have more events or meetings at the Silva Library too, because we generally have them in Canton, which is where Down Home North Carolina's headquarters are. But again, I live here in Sylvan, so it's nice for me to only be a few minutes away from the meeting and then go home. But yeah, we are definitely wanting to encourage the residents of Jackson and Haywood County to come see what we're about and see if this is something that you'd like to be a part of. And we welcome that for sure.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for coming this morning. Is there anything else you want to relate before we go off the air here?
I don't think so. I appreciate your time, though. I really do. I was super nervous, but I think I'm very happy to do this, and it gives me experience, and it helps me to get to know you too. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your work, and thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.